Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of the Finance Hand podcast. And I had a week off. Last week. Did you miss me? I'm going to more than make it up to you this week. As you all know, I managed to pay down 10,000 debt within less than a year, following the Financielle Method. And this week, our guest is Laura Pomfret, one of the co-founders of Financielle and one of the BBC money experts on Morning Live. We talk about all things sinking funds and how to avoid action paralysis, meaning that you actually get started on your money goals rather than just planning them. Enjoy the episode, guys. I was like, shall I introduce her as the woman that changed my life?
Introduce me however you want, but I'll just come back at you and say that was you, not me. But
it's true, though. That's the thing. It's true. Laura, welcome to the Finance Hand podcast. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. I'm really excited to, I know we chat all the time, but I'm excited to chat with you and hundreds of others.
I'm excited to have you on. Like, I do not gatekeep Financielle at all. Like, it is completely the reason I was able to sort out my money shit, as you guys say. So just for like a quick icebreaker and a get to know you question, because I want everyone to get to know kind of the person behind the method. So keeping it money centric, what is the most unnecessary thing that you've ever bought, but it's made your life 100 times better?
Oh, that's such a good question. What's the most unnecessary thing? Do you know what? It's the gym membership. And I came from a place, especially when I was on a real money journey and things were tight and we were renovating the house, I was on mat leave, where I was the first person to say, you can just go for a run. You can do workouts at home. And I have been that person. But the minute I saw friends going, I felt like I needed accountability. I felt like I needed routine. And there's a gym in our village. And I felt it was pricey. It was more pricey than a different gym that my husband goes to, which he just pots around and just, he's fine. But I need community. Like, I'm that person that talks in the gym. I cannot, the instructor's like, right, come on now, Laura, shut up. And just like at school. And I paid a punchy price for it. And it absolutely has changed my life. And it's got me a gorgeous set of friends. But it's unnecessary, isn't it? It's like, you don't need a gym membership.
Yeah, it's a nice to have rather than a need to have, I guess. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking as well, like, of all the things, mine's a walking pad. So similar sort of vibe to you. Definitely don't need to have it. But I tell you what, on those winter days where it's like dark until 9, dark from 3 p.m. and I'm like, I don't want to go for a walk, it's definitely a need to have rather than a nice to have.
Yeah, it's the same vibe. I think I'm definitely, listen, there's a long list of things that we can all be influenced by, and I'm a massive fan of if it fits in the budget, like, just don't sweat it. Make sure it fits as part of the budget. Make sure we're not spending money that we don't have to get these things. And if they don't work out, sell the walking pad. Stop the gym membership. You don't know if it's going to be of use or not. But it needs to be judgment. It definitely needs to be judgment free. But we don't need to buy shit we don't need.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so you're one of the co-founders of Financielle and a host of the Vault podcast, which I'm a loyal listener to and a Financielle girly till I die. But were you always super confident with your money, or was there a moment where you thought, oh, actually, something needs to change here?
No, I really wasn't. I certainly am not from that space where I grew up around money or grew up around financial education. It was a moment when I became a mum really young, unplanned at like 23, and suddenly was like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I get organized? I used to finish the end of the month dipping into the overdraft, putting things on credit card and not really realizing that credit was funding kind of my day-to-day life. So the idea that I had to be responsible for something else was really scary, but it was kind of like the rocket that I needed to, get control, understand how things work. And I guess years later, a decade later, when we did, Holly and I, who's my sister, decided to start Financielle, it started off as an Instagram page, very similar to the Finance Hand. It was like giving tips and tricks. And it just landed at a time where so many like money thing, like the Instagram money community and financial influencers were becoming a thing. But I still just think we were different. I think lots of people were doing explainers and education, and no one was helping people navigate, firstly, like what to do in what order, but two, really bringing in like the human side of it of, this isn't, most of the time, this isn't a maths thing. It's a human thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a hormone thing. It's a circumstantial thing. It's not just numbers. And I think that's what really resonated. And so it's quite refreshing to be non-financy in the finance world. And we now speak and regularly meet with the biggest finance brands in the country, some of them global, and they just find our content so refreshing. And it's not because it's pink, and it's not because it's girly, it's not because it's simplified. From an outsider looking in, I'm a former lawyer, I'm sat there going, why do you need all these words? Why do you need to say it that particular way? People don't talk like that, and people aren't, so therefore people aren't listening. And I think that's what we've had the most fun with.
Yeah, hard agree. Like, I read Girls That Invest, the book by Simran Kaur, love her book and love her podcast as well. And I had the same thing. Like, when I was reading through, and it literally has a bit where it breaks down all the jargon, I was like, why is this all here? You could just literally say, like, when I found out capital literally means money, I was like, why are people not just saying money?
100%. And exactly what Simran's doing is exactly the same thing. It is not dumbing it down. It may be simplifying, but quite frankly, men as well as women are really appreciating the simplification. But it's also this point that, like, I'm not a massive fan of loads of finance courses and loads of different books. Like, I just think you just need to know just enough. Mm-hmm. When we've just talked about fitness or we've talked about nutrition, I don't need to do a nutritionist course to eat better. If I want to be, Olympic athlete, or maybe like a Pilates model, or if I had, an autoimmune disease, if it was really serious, then yeah, you might need to get your head into some books and study. But to live like a nice, healthy, balanced life, I just need to know just enough. Because quite frankly, if you overwhelm me, like, I'm not even a macros person. I know that protein is important. That's the level I go to. I don't track I don't even track protein. All I do is I think, it needs to be a substantial part of my meal. And every meal I go, what's the protein there? Tiny bit of protein, and then must put some more on, and I know that a plate should be colourful, but I don't know much more than that. But why do I need to? The finance world, it was gatekeeping so many simple things and then overlaying a load of complication on top. And so I think as outsiders, because we constantly get asked financial advisors, I'm like, nope. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, agree. I mean, we were talking about this literally just before we started recording, and there's so many similarities between a health journey and a finance journey. And, you go on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and there's 1,000 different opinions. And it's like, if you're not doing this on your workouts, or if you're not doing this in your investing, then you're going to be poor or whatever. And actually, it's just some really super basics that just work across the board, and like, start applying those, and slowly but surely, putting one step in front of the other, you'll eventually get there.
Yeah, I think ultimately building wealth is really boring. And it's, it's slow and it's steady, and it's not, for the vast majority of us, including, the hedge fund managers in Canary Wharf, it's not picking stocks. It's not even picking funds. It's tracking the market, having diversification. It's being confident to buy your property that's affordable for you because you want that property, not because you think you're timing the market. I get asked constantly, is it a good time to buy, or should we be careful? Those risks are always there. No one has a crystal ball, and anyone that tells you otherwise is lying and does not know. But to build financial wellness and wealth is quite boring. I think that's why at Financial we've liked to gamify some of it. Like, let's do some no spend challenges. I love paying off debt. Like, sometimes I wish I could go back and be in debt so that I could get aggressive again, because that's like a short moment where you get excited. But for any kind of wellness journey, it's more of a lifestyle change. And I think it's really hard for humans to get excited about a lifestyle change. We like fads and quick fixes and trends.
Yeah. And I think kind of having like the debt to pay down at the beginning, that's definitely kind of what hooked me in, and then set the trajectory for the lifestyle, because I said the same thing. Like, I almost miss it a little bit, just because you've got that such a clear goal. You're like, that's my goal. Everything I do is working towards that. And then when you pay it off, obviously you bump up your emergency fund, so you've got more of a safety cushion. But once that's done, it's kind of like the world's your oyster a little bit. But it's nice to have that hardcore direction on where your financial journey is going. So I feel you on that one. And I know a few people might think, what a weird thing to say, saying they miss debt.
It's when you finally get sick of it, when you start to demonize the credit businesses. I absolutely hate Klarna, ClearPay, Monzo Flex. It really, really like, I hate them because they're making millions and millions and millions of pounds off the back of a lot of women, but of all of us. And I think when you start to really get annoyed that you're making payments to them and not to you, you just want it gone. You just literally, it's like an unwanted guest in the house, and you're like, are you going to leave yet? Like, you need to leave and you need to go. And so I think it's because you've got this ickiness. I think we're a lot more calmer when it's about building wealth and when it's about investments. And, when your investments are automated, it is quite boring. I think that's why at Financielle, we were really passionate from the off about putting in a net worth tracker, because it was a way to do two things. One, for someone in debt, to help show them that, look, you might feel like you've not got a lot of money right now. And we call it financial poor, where like money's in pots and money's in sinking funds and you've paid all your bills and you've overpaid your debt, but you feel like you've no money. When you look at the net worth tracker, which you do once a month, you see movement and you see progress, and you can pat yourself on the back and go, I've done well. And if you've got like a minus 10 grand net worth, but it goes to minus 8, that's the same as someone else having like 100 grand net worth and going to like, 150. It's gone up in the same direction. So it's a leveler. But for those people that do have savings and have paid off debt, and it might feel a little bit boring, actually to track your net worth and see the growth in like maybe property values or the growth in your portfolios, it's like a motivator to keep calm and carry on. Like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, you're still moving in the right direction, even if you still have got debts to pay off. So, quick question then, for somebody who is completely new to this, maybe this is the first episode that they're listening to and dipping their toe into what it might be like to sort their finances out. And obviously that's quite an overwhelming place to be sometimes. But what would be the very first step that you'd tell someone to make if they wanted to get their financial shit together?
I think firstly it's deciding that they want to, because this is something that is a lifestyle change. And for this to work, you have to make a couple of promises to yourself. You have to say that I'm never going to go into consumer debt again, because what's going to happen is I'm going to undo, there's a lot of hard work ahead of me and I'm just going to undo it all. It's being ready to make habit changes, and, habits are formed in the brain. It's on, connectors in the brain forming new pathways. And it's really hard to make new ones. And so if you've had years of overspending, years of using your overdraft, years of saying yes to everything, do not underestimate how hard it is to make those changes. I think, like I said, that's why we like at Financielle gamifying it, breaking it up into smaller steps and not focusing on, boiling the ocean, but, doing a teaspoon at a time, because you'll just get switched off and you'll go. So I think being very aware that this is a big change. You will change as a person, your outlook will change. And are you ready for that? And people usually are. People are like, no, I'm 25, 30, 50. I can't do this anymore. Like, I want a nice life. I want to be able to pay for nice things, but I want to be able to pay for it with money I have. I want to be able to know that I can sleep at night if I lost my job. Like, they do want that, but it's deciding that, because there's no point doing any of this if you're not quite ready. And then if the first place is know your numbers, you've got to do a budget, and a budget is not a bad word. It's a plan. It can be a really bougie plan. Budgets run countries, not always effectively, but they run companies, and they run really big households as well as the people on tough income. And so budget is just permission to spend. It's just deciding what order things happen. The first time you do one of those, Hannah, you'll know it's overwhelming, because you realize that you're probably funding your life with credit. You have too many things to do and not enough money. But it's a starting point, and that's the exciting bit, especially for someone that's been on that journey. The best thing you can do is get a first budget of someone, and you go, right, what we're going to do. Because if you do your budget, you can squeeze it, and you can look to increase your income, you can look to decrease your expenses. But the most important thing is doing that budget and having an excess at the end. And if you have excess, it means that you're living on less than you make, which is good. That's a place of wellness, because you can sustain yourself. But then you start the momentum and put that towards your mini emergency fund, then paying off debt, then a bigger emergency fund, then buying a house, and so on. And so that long journey starts with that very first step of knowing where you're at and making your first plan.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, a money journey, what I love about it is, like, you can pretty much have progress from the first day. Like, the first day that you decide to make that budget, and you can see, oh, okay, well, actually, I could have this much excess. Or it might be on the other side of the spectrum where you don't have any excess, and like, right, okay, let's chop and change something around so we can make sure that we do have a little bit left at the end of the month. And I love that. I love that it's something that you can literally see starting to change from day one. But I know when I first started, like I went to make my first budget and I was like, what the hell is a budget? I don't even know where to even begin. And I know it can be quite lengthy to explain, but what are some kind of quick key bullet points that people should look at if they want to make a budget?
So I think that's why I like what you said about chopping and changing. What we like about the financial budget is it's forward planning. When people and a lot of the banking apps are reflective and they look back, it's too late. Mm-hmm. It's looking after the event, and there's not much you can do. You know, you want to be able to switch things up as you go. So most budgets, they will be wrong because it's a forecast. It's not absolutely predictable. You don't know what's going to come up. You don't know what the price of eggs is going to be that week. I don't know of any budget that would come on bang on budget. So it's a forecast at best. But the idea that you can build a budget and chop it and change it as you go because, I forgot about that meal. I'm going to adjust some of the other categories so that we come out on plan. But we've been able to do that thing and we've been able to, pull back somewhere else. It's that ability to do that makes you feel so in control and still have the thing or do the thing and come out on top. And when it comes to budget, the income is just the most important line. And, I'm not a fan of like manifest more income and just, side hustle your way to the top. And, a lot of women especially spend a lot of time and energy on things that don't impact their income enough, whereas actually like your main role, making sure that you optimize your income as best as possible is the biggest tool you have, because when it comes to expenses, you can only cut them so far. Then we run a budget like a P&L. So you have your fixed expenses, which is things like your direct debit. So the stuff that you can't change really the amount that you pay. Like you can switch a provider and you can switch an interest rate on mortgages and stuff, but really like they're fixed and the direct debit. So you list your direct debits. You then make sure you include your sinking funds, and sinking funds are pots of money that you build up for a planned expense. So if you travel every year, if you celebrate Christmas, if you pay for your car insurance up front because it's cheaper, you divide that up by the months you've got until that needs to be spent, and you put that in. And then you move that money to pots, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then it's your flexible expenses. So like your fuel, your travel costs, your beauty, if you pay for it monthly, your food and groceries. Fund money can be one as well. Anything that's like, it's a category that you pay as you go. It's not a bill. So those are different categories. And then what I do for my sinking funds and my flexible, I use Starling, but you can use Starling, Monzo, Chase, Revolut. I create a pot for each sinking fund and flexible expense and move them. So then they're all ready. So then for the rest of that budget, my fixed expenses have gone out. I've paid all my bills, and my other pots are there waiting for when I need to use them, but they're not like sloshing around in that current account. So that's how you can use either, your notes app, spreadsheet, financial app. You can set your budget, but then you can use your banking app to kind of manage it.
I think what I love so much about that version of budgeting, because obviously there's so many different ways you can do it, like the 50-30-20, or I can't remember, it's 20-30, whichever. But I don't think that it really leaves room for kind of future things that you want to do and also what you need to do. And sinking funds, like, I swear I'm going to get it tattooed that sinking funds save lives.
Yeah, do it. Oh my God, that was so much fun.
It is the biggest money move, I think, I've ever made. Like just getting around to an event, whether it's something fun like, I don't know, a concert ticket or a holiday or whatever, or something that you have to do, just knowing that previous you had your own back and it feels free. I know that you've saved up over the last 12 months, but it's like that money doesn't have to come out of, like, if I don't feel like I'm paying for it because it's already gone,
I feel like with sinking funds, it's going back to basics and how people used to save up for things. And again, this is where like I'm really anti-credit, because the credit industry has helped to facilitate immediate purchase, and we're so used to instant gratification. Whether it's a dress that I want immediately and I'll split it up into paying it in 6, or at Christmas when you need to use credit to pay for things. We're just so used to doing that. It's so normal that it's a big learning curve to work backwards and go, okay, how much will I need? And the first time you put money in sinking funds, it's just so annoying. You go, oh, like, what's the point and why is that there, until you use it. And the minute you use it, like you said, it feels like free money, and it's this like virtual pat yourself on the back for doing the work. That's not just financial, that's mental. That's like building up that muscle memory of say no to something I know it's coming, and then I save up the money for it. And that's the order that I do it in. It's a massive, like, big girl pants moment for me.
Yeah. Have you had a moment where you've had a bit of a, oh no, like shit's hit the fan moment, and a sinking fund has saved you back? Like, what's the most prominent one you can think of?
When we were doing the house renovation, we've got a lovely extension, and we've got like a steel pole in the middle, and we weren't meant to have, but our house is a 1960s house. It's not great quality, and the builder did warn us for the size of room we wanted that could be a possibility. But he also said the back of the house is just in quite poor nick, that if the house sinks a bit, they'll put a pole in, but they might need to redo the top of the house. And for our renovation budget, like, we'd already had a contingency and it was already being used. And one day the builder saying to me, it's $7,500. We need to rebuild it. It's not safe. What am I getting for $7,500? I'm getting a nice window. No. I'm getting a balcony. No, it will just look the same. Nicer new brick, but we just need to rebuild the gable. But we still wanted to try for this all across and not have a pole. So we've got the pole, which we put nice Christmas lights on at Christmas now. We're quite
lovely. Love that.
Run into it a few times, which is not that helpful. But we had an emergency fund, a good one, like not a we'll wing it one. Maybe there might have been 15, 20 in it. And it was just like, oh, it's annoying. Anyway, what's for dinner? Like, it wasn't a, where are we going to find 7.5? How are we going to borrow it? Where are we going to pull it from investments? Like, it wasn't an issue. That's the emergency fund. The sinking fund one's always cars, because Carl and I both have 10-year-old cars. I love my car. When I tell people, they don't realize how old it is because it's got a private reg on, because I don't understand the regs either. So I don't know how old cars are when I see them. I don't care. But other people are like, oh, that's a 2024 or whatever. But we look after them, and we have a good car maintenance sinking fund, so that, like, one year, the service and the MOTs at the same time, we needed 6 new tires out of 8. Okay.
Oh no.
And honestly, I think when I speak to people that don't have a car maintenance sinking fund and that happens to them, it's the worst thing ever. The worst thing is, this bloody car's costing me this, or I've got to shell out this. And honestly, you just go, oh well, at least I've got 6 new tires. Don't have to think about it for another 2 years or whatever. It's just the most freeing thing. Whereas if you had to pull money out of savings to pay, I just think you'd be annoyed. And so that's the moment where it's just there ready. But I've not had this experience. I'm not very trendy or into good music or anything like that. Thankfully, I don't have to sit in a queue for tickets for anything because I'm not cool enough. But I've had friends that, were able to buy like Beyonce tickets or Oasis tickets, and they have a concert sinking fund. I bet you've had one, I think, before as well. And just that guilt-free, I don't give a crap that they were 200 quid tickets. I'm going, and I'm going to Berlin watching it, and I'm going to fly, and it's there and paid for. It doesn't feel like you are compromising your financial goals and your financial progress or doing something reckless because the money's there. It's already mentally spent.
Yeah, 100% agree with both of those things you said. Like, I remember before my car used to go in for an MOT, I'd actually have like really bad anxiety, like my stomach would be churning because I was like, oh God, I don't know how much it's going to cost me. But it goes from kind of that feeling of like an essential, your car's got to have an MOT at the end of the day. So that feeling of, feeling sick and anxiety, to then being on the other side of the coin. Back in March, I got offered Sabrina Carpenter tickets 4 hours before the concert. And I was like, yes, I've got it in the Future Fun Fund. I can go. And it was amazing.
Oh my God.
Best night ever.
The number of people, like, I saw something about Coachella earlier this year, and the number of people, I saw a stat, so I'm not fact checked this, so I do apologize, but something like 75% of tickets were bought on buy now, pay later.
No way.
Yeah, which I think is really weird. I understand people putting it on credit cards and stuff, but because they provided for it at checkout, so many people are probably like, oh, I need a nice outfit as well, and I need accommodation, I need this. I'll do it. And I understood it, because at the point of need at that checkout, and with how costly some of these events are, you're providing some of the little bit of financial relief and the spreading it out. But if you buy something last minute and you're still paying for it like months after,
no,
it's just like,
it's already been and gone.
And you feel icky and you feel annoyed at yourself. There's a guilt cycle with impulsive spending, where, especially if it's not planned for, like if you didn't. Some people struggle spending even if it's planned for. So like you go, oh my God. And I go, you can afford it. Like the number of times I say to my friends or to people in my life, why are we even talking about this? We've wasted money talking about this. Like, just do the thing. But so many people feel so guilty when they've spent because something wasn't in the budget. That it makes the thing not worth it. Like, you've just spoiled the experience after
Yeah.
all that. You've been reckless, you've spent the money, and now you're like giving yourself a hard time about it. So sinking funds just give you that permission to spend and that confidence. And, you know, when I look in our sinking funds, you know, they're quite high because we've got family 5, travel fund, 2 car fund. We save up for insurances in advance. Christmas is quite big for us because there's 5 of us. Like, there's probably 10, 11 grand like in sinking fund pots because it totals it up at the top. That's a lot of financial strength behind us. That's not an emergency fund. It's sat waiting for when we need it. In our community, we know that's like, I don't know, like heart points. Like when you're doing your health and a gaming thing and you want more life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like extra points. You're like, I feel good.
Yeah. What would you say then if somebody was listening to this and thought, oh yeah, like I'm going to get involved in sinking funds? What is one sinking fund that they could set up today? What one would you recommend that will kind of enforce the idea that, oh yeah, sinking funds are worth doing? You think, oh yeah, this shit works, you know?
I like the holiday one because I think it's usually a chunky purchase. It's not straight away. And it's the thing that so many of us have put on credit. It's the biggest thing that lots of people would put on a card, either in advance or at the time when they're there and stuff. And like, you're still there and you've still not paid off the card. And when you are booking a holiday and you've got that pot there, it's just such a good feeling because it's usually a bigger amount of money. You're not being saddled with a payment afterwards. And I don't know, I even believe the holiday is better because you're not worrying about how we're going to pay for it. Should we have done that? And I've seen people, they've got money aside and then like someone in the family's passed away or someone's been sick and someone's lost a job. We did that. My husband was made redundant in the summer and had to navigate that. And he'd never had that happen before. And we had money in the travel pot. And I know he likes a good holiday. I was like, I can work from wherever we go. Shall we go to Portugal I think we went for 15, 16 days. It was the best time because we had money there. So we just this is already in the travel pot. It wasn't an emergency fund. It's there. And we just hadn't decided this last bit of our travel. So just that freedom and flexibility like that, it just makes you feel invincible. And it thanks your past self for that decision that you saved up for it. I really like the giving sinking fund as well. But I like the giving one because I always advise people to set a sinking fund up for giving from the beginning, like whether it's £5, £10, everyone can afford that in the budget. And over time, when you increase that, then when someone asks for, you know, can you sponsor me? I'm doing the marathon, or someone gives you amazing service and you're chatting to someone in a restaurant and they say, oh yeah, actually I'm like studying at night school and I'm paying for this. And you just want to give them a really good tip. You don't want to come from a place of, oh, but can I afford that this bill's expensive already, can I afford to? It's from the giving pot, and you might build that pot up because if nothing calls you in that particular month, when you feel like you want to share and you want to give, the fact that it comes from a pot that you've already decided is not for you is just a massive shift mentally. And to keep increasing that helps you to know that you've got enough, like you're absolutely fine. It's a nice peaceful thing, I think.
Yeah, nobody wants to be that person. I remember when I first started budgeting and I got caught out by like the cats protection people when they were on the street. And I was they were like, oh, it's only £1. And they had I did the whole, oh, I haven't got any cash. Oh, it's okay, we've got a card machine. I was like, oh no. I don't think it was £1 actually. I think it was a bit more than that. But it was when I just started my financial journey and I was like, I haven't got £5 in the budget to give to the cats protection, you know? So I think the giving one is a massively underrated one because we've all had that fear before, haven't we? I think if you're on a finance journey or if you've been on the debt pay down journey, whether it's you're in Aldi about to check out and you're wondering whether it'll go through, or if you've been ambushed by the cat protection people, you know.
Well, and I think that the flip side of it is some people, you know, would give everything and love to give and would give to everyone else before they've paid their own bills and kind of rack up debt themselves, but make sure someone else is okay. And so I think the idea that it just forms part of the bigger plan, it just bring a lot of peace. It makes you feel like you're helping. I think that the trick is actually as you earn more or as you have a bigger excess to increase it, like to go, because you might start off at 5, but then it might get to 100 and you have to sit there and go, oh, can we afford to give 100 in the month? But you can afford it if it's proportional, and you can afford it if you've been paying down your debt. And isn't it nicer to give it to someone else than it is to pay a Barclaycard, for example? It's an interesting one. It's a very self-reflective one, but that's a really good thinking one as well.
Yeah, it's an empowering place to be. So just a couple of quick questions for you, because there might be some people listening to this who are just about to start their finance journey, and you've helped, I'm going to confidently say, probably like hundreds of thousands of people on their wealth journey and just kind of getting their finances in a place where they're comfortable and not fretting throughout the month. So when people start embarking on this journey, what are some common fears that you hear and see pop up, and what small steps can people take to overcome those?
So the biggest one is this overwhelm of multiple things that I should be doing. A lot of this is common sense. We don't often teach someone something brand new. We might give them a bit more detail, a bit more context, but it might be that someone has been overspending, got loads of debt, they're in their overdraft, they're not very good at saving, they're self-employed, they've never done a pension, and they're just like, where do I start? We'd like to get married. I'd like to have children. It literally, we had one like that. And it was just like, okay, slow down and stop. And just kind of showing that all these things are good things to do. When you've messed up in the nicest possible way in so many different areas, you don't suddenly get to go, I'm going to do all these things now and that be easy. Like, it is hard. And unfortunately, we have to own our decisions and past behavior. Sometimes it was our decisions, and sometimes it's a product of circumstance. We could have had a poor relationship, a health issue, job breakdown. There's loads of reasons why people get into the certain financial circumstances. There's lots of reasons that are self-inflicted as well. But people get overwhelmed with, when they realize it's important to build a pension and it's important to have an emergency fund and they'd like to have a house and they've got all this debt, they just go, I'm never going to be able to do it. And so I think what we really like doing at Financielle is like stretching out this timeline. There's a timeline, a journey that you want to go down to tell someone you can build a pension and you should probably start doing the default percentages, but you really need to get rid of this debt. You need to go all in on that first. And, the Harvard Business Studies have shown that by focusing on, for example, the snowball method versus the avalanche method, which for those listening, like a snowball method is putting the smallest debt to largest, and the avalanche is the highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. That's the mathematical one that makes more sense. But the Harvard Business Study showed that the snowball works better because on a human level, it's motivation that we benefit from more. And so people that tackle interest rate debts first are more likely to fail because they get overwhelmed by, this 20 grand debt with a high percentage versus the small one that they get a win and they go, this is addictive. And I say that with a pinch of salt because, by the way, we would always advise if there's a debt that's annoying someone, focus on that first. But it's just this idea of overwhelm. And so having to tell someone, you can buy a house and you can put more into your pension and you can build a bigger emergency fund, but you need to wait, is sometimes one of the hardest things to tell someone and to have them consider. But I think deep down, they know we're right. So yeah, I think the biggest thing for so many people is when they realize they're so behind, as they say it, and they want to get ahead on everything. It's like, you're just going to have to slow down. So they're probably the biggest two things. The third thing is, and more when it comes to investing, is there's a lot of really good investing brands. Like, you've got Female Invest, you've got Girls That Invest, you've got just a few more popping up. We're not them, and we don't want to be, because there's a big issue with women wanting to know more than they need before they start. Whereas when we speak to males that invest but that aren't into it, I think if you're into it, it's different. It's like a hobby, I want to learn more. But if you just know that you should be investing more and benefiting from compound interest, I see just stark differences between a lot of men and women, typically, where a woman wants to just know so much more and do so much studying that they don't do the thing. And the man's just gone to Vanguard, they've gone to AJ Bell, they've gone to Pension Bee, they've set up an account, they've set up a direct debit, and then they're like, shall we go play golf?
Yeah.
Generalized. But that is, I think, our space is to go, if you want to learn more, great, there's other people, but if you just want to learn just enough, do the thing. Because if you're overthinking it, if you're taking too long, you've missed, time's gone on, and you still know way more than the person that just set up a direct debit and put it in, and guess what, they're ahead because they just did the thing that wasn't perfect.
Yeah, it's perfection paralysis, isn't it? I think they call it. Like, you just wait for the perfect moment or wait till you know enough. But it's like with everything, and like, I am a bit spiritual. I know you said that's not your bag, but it's the same thing. You're never going to know everything, and you've just got to kind of get on the roller coaster when you feel like maybe you're nearly ready to start, because you're never going to feel fully ready. So yeah,
and just feel the fear and do it anyway. I think it's a thing. That paralysis is exactly what it is, Hannah. And I don't want anyone to be reckless either. So there's like a halfway point where you do need to know just enough, and you should probably do it in the right order. You know, when I see people investing into pensions or ISAs, but they're messing around with debt, you kind of like, you know, glad you're doing it, and maybe that's your investing muscle, but you kind of need to nail this thing over here. That's going to hold you back from being able to really truly fly and put loads in later.
And it does get to a point where it is just kind of like, as you said, it's just something that you do, you know, payday rolls around. I know with some of the newer banks, Monzo does this, but you can just put everything in your pots automatically in your sinking funds. You can do your investments automatically, and it's just kind of like, oh, I've been paid. Oh, it's automated. Done. Let's carry on with the rest of my day. Like the guys playing golf.
Exactly. It just sometimes involves a little bit of work up front. And once you've done that plan and once you've set all that up, it brings someone back to that once a month to go, look how well you're doing. All these decisions are moving in the right direction. And it should free up some headspace to focus on, you know, from a financial perspective, things that improve your financial wellness, whether it be, you know, doing hard at work or starting a business. And this is like a flywheel effect. You go, something that was a big thing, like paying off debt, becomes easy to do. And then something, you know, transferring money into savings, right, I've done that. And you just get more efficient and more effective. And then you start to look at other things. You know, I want to get to the point where people are maxing out their ISAs and they're cracking on with pension contributions. And then I'll go, what's next? You know, do I angel invest? Do I buy a property investment? Do I start a business? Because I can start a business when I have no consumer debt and I've got really good emergency funds and my expenses are low. I've got headspace then to move on to the next thing. Whereas if you're messing around down here and you're overthinking everything, you're never going to get to that point of that position of strength.
Absolutely. Honestly, I could talk to you forever about all of these topics. Like, you know, I'm a hardcore Financielle stan. For those listening that want to check out the community, check out what you guys are doing, where can everybody find you, the rest of the Financielle team?
So we're always on Instagram. So you'll be able to come to Instagram, join the fun, like DM us if you fancy a chat, where at least the team, the 3 of us, 4 of us all rotate on the Instagram. But more importantly, the app, if you download the app in the App Store, that's where we are. And the community's behind the paywall. It wasn't at first, you know, and we really wanted it to be free and accessible, but technically it was really difficult to do without kind of getting loads of spam in that was not of any use and was an awful lot of work to manage. And so we had to put it behind the paywall. But actually, you know, it is a freemium app and a lot of it's free. But if you pay for premium, which is like 40 quid for the year, you get access to the budgeting tool, the net worth tool, and the playbook and the community. And the community is worth its weight in gold. And I'm kind of glad actually now that it is the premium users that are in there, because everyone's very intentional, like everyone's on a journey and committed to it. And so if you really want to see that, then get in the community and do a trial of the app and see what it's like. And I promise you, like you'd make your money back on the subscription the first year, but you'll see our content. You'll be able to track all your goals, track your debts, and you too will have a story one day to share, which is something life-changing.
Amazing. Laura, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been amazing to have you on. Feels like a real full circle moment.
I know. Well, listen, I don't often get to share the story or get asked to share the story, especially with someone who has lived and breathed it. So no, it's great to follow so many amazing guests that all have their own experiences and their stories and their perspectives.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the